Most people go through life never really stopping to notice who they are. They don't question the patterns that govern their choices, their relationships, their work, or even their sense of worth. They wake up, move through the day, and repeat the same routines tomorrow, assuming that's simply who they are. But the truth is, that's not who you are. That's just who you've been trained to believe you are. And if you want transformation, if you want your life to expand into something more meaningful, more courageous, more aligned with what you could be, the first step is awareness. Awareness is like turning on the light in a dark room. You've been stumbling around, bumping into the furniture, wondering why life feels painful or confusing, and suddenly you can see the layout. It doesn't immediately change the furniture, but it changes your relationship to it. You can no longer pretend you don't know why you're stuck. You can see the habits, the excuses, the beliefs that have been driving you. That's why awareness is so uncomfortable at first. It forces you to confront what you'd rather avoid: the laziness, the resentment, the fear, the wasted time. And yet, that confrontation is the beginning of freedom. When you become aware, you start noticing things about yourself you never questioned before. Why do you get angry at small frustrations? Why do you avoid taking responsibility when things go wrong? Why do you shrink back when opportunity appears, convincing yourself you're not ready? These are not random quirks of personality. They're patterns. They're programs you've been running unconsciously, often since childhood. And until you see them, you are controlled by them. Awareness brings them into the light, and the moment you see them, you have a choice. You can continue as you've always been, or you can begin the work of transformation. But awareness is not just about noticing the negative. It's also about recognizing your potential. Most people underestimate themselves because they've never really considered what they're capable of. They've allowed their vision to be narrowed by fear, by failure, by other people's expectations. But when you step back and look honestly at yourself, you might see sparks of courage, flashes of brilliance, moments of resilience that suggest something much greater lies within you. Awareness is not merely an inventory of flaws, it's also a discovery of hidden strengths. And here's the paradox: the more aware you become of your limitations, the more you realize how much potential you actually have. That's why awareness is powerful. It humbles you because it shows you where you've been blind, but it also elevates you because it reveals the doorways you've been walking past without ever noticing. The path to transformation isn't about some distant miracle. It begins the moment you look at yourself with clarity and say, this is who I've been, this is where I've failed, and this is what I could become. It's tempting to believe that awareness is passive, that noticing is enough. But it's not. Awareness demands responsibility, because once you've seen the truth, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to blaming circumstances or pretending you had no control. You know now that you are the one shaping your future. That realization is both terrifying and exhilarating. Terrifying because it strips away excuses. Exhilarating because it means you're not trapped. You're capable of becoming someone entirely different. The first step in transforming your life is not grand action. It's not making promises to the world. It's not even setting lofty goals. The first step is the quiet, almost painful honesty of awareness. It's pausing long enough to look in the mirror without flinching, to see the truth about who you are today. Because only when you truly see yourself can you begin the work of becoming someone greater. And once you've turned on that light, there's no going back. You either grow into the person you're meant to be, or you choose to live small while knowing you could have been more. And that is a choice no one can make for you but you. Once you've developed the courage to look at yourself honestly, once you've allowed awareness to show you the truth about who you've been, the next step is perhaps even more difficult. You have to challenge the image of yourself you've been carrying around, and here's the hard reality. That image is not necessarily accurate, and it's not necessarily yours. Most of the time, it's a patchwork stitched together by the voices of your past. Parents who doubted you, teachers who overlooked you, peers who mocked you, even your own failures that you never forgave yourself for. Those fragments form a picture, and over time, you begin to mistake that picture for your identity. Think about it. How many times have you told yourself, I'm just not good at that, or I could never do something like this, or that's not for people like me? Where did those ideas come from? Were they born from genuine truth, or did they come from some painful moment that scarred you and then hardened into a permanent belief? The human mind is remarkably good at clinging to pain and using it as evidence. Fail once, and suddenly you're the kind of person who always fails. Get rejected, and you're the kind of person who will never be chosen. Lose your temper, and you're convinced you're broken beyond repair. This is the prison of the old self-image, and the bars are built from your own unquestioned assumptions. But here's the liberating part. Those assumptions are not reality. They are interpretations. They are stories you've told yourself again and again until they feel unshakable. The truth is, you don't really know your limits. You don't really know how far you could go, because you've been living within the narrow walls of a self-image constructed in the past. And the past is not destiny. It's a record of who you were, not a prophecy of who you must remain. To challenge the old self-image, you have to become suspicious of your own narrative. You have to catch yourself in the act of labeling, of saying, I'm just not disciplined, or I'll never be confident. Instead of taking those statements as facts, you begin to question them. Is it that you're not disciplined, or is it that you haven't yet built habits that reinforce discipline? Is it that you'll never be confident, or is it that you've been practicing insecurity for so long that it feels natural? The difference between fact and habit is crucial. Most of what you believe about yourself isn't a fact. It's a habit of thought, and habits can be changed. This doesn't mean dismissing every flaw and pretending you're perfect. Quite the opposite. It means looking your weaknesses in the eye and saying, this is not the whole story. Maybe you've failed many times, but that doesn't mean you're doomed to fail again. Maybe you've been timid, but that doesn't mean courage isn't possible. The old self-image thrives on permanence. It whispers that nothing can change, but the reality of human life is transformation. You are always in the process of becoming. The person you are today is already different from who you were 5 years ago. If that's true, why would you assume the future has to be a repeat of the past? Challenging your old self-image requires courage because it means letting go of familiar pain. There's comfort in saying, this is just who I am, even if it's a painful identity, because at least it's predictable. But transformation doesn't happen in predictability. It happens when you risk rewriting the story, when you dare to say, I don't actually know who I could become, but I'm willing to find out. That kind of humility mixed with courage is the seed of genuine change. The prison of your old self-image will only hold you as long as you believe the lock is real. Once you question it, once you dare to imagine something more, the door swings open. And when you step through it, you are no longer bound by who you were yesterday. You are free to become who you are meant to be. Once you've pulled the old image of yourself into the light and dared to question it, you face a critical choice. You can leave that empty space unfilled, which means the old image will simply creep back in, or you can deliberately begin to shape a new vision of who you want to become. This is not about fantasy or self-deception. It's not about pretending you're something you're not. It's about choosing a direction, a higher standard, a more truthful reflection of your potential, and then orienting your life toward it. People often underestimate the power of vision. They think it's just daydreaming, but there's an immense difference between idle wishing and consciously crafting an image of yourself that acts as a compass. When you have a clear vision of who you want to be, it organizes your decisions. It shapes how you respond to setbacks, how you use your time, how you carry yourself in the world. Without that vision, you drift, pulled by every distraction and every old pattern. With it, you move forward with purpose, even when the way is difficult. So ask yourself, who do you want to be, not in some shallow, social, media sense, but in the deepest way, If you stripped away the fear of judgment, the weight of past failures, the constant comparison to others, what kind of person would you dare to become? Would you be stronger, more disciplined, more courageous? Would you speak the truth when it mattered, even if it cost you? Would you live with more compassion, with more clarity, with more meaning? These are not abstract questions. They are the beginning of building a vision. You have to see it clearly. Picture yourself walking into a room. How do you stand? How do you speak? How do others respond to your presence? Picture yourself facing difficulty. Do you collapse in fear, or do you rise to meet it with steadiness and resolve? Picture yourself at the end of a day. Do you fall asleep knowing you wasted hours in distraction, or do you rest with the quiet satisfaction that you lived aligned with your values? That vision is not just imagination. It's rehearsal. It's training your mind to recognize the person you're becoming, so that when the moment arrives, your actions naturally move in that direction. Of course, there's a danger here. The danger is creating a vision so vague or so grandiose that it feels unreachable. That's why your vision must be both inspiring and attainable, not easy but possible. You're not imagining perfection, you're aiming at growth. You're not saying, tomorrow I will be flawless. You're saying, tomorrow I will take one step closer to the person I've chosen to become. That's how transformation works. A clear vision gives you something to aim at, and even if you fall short, you fall in the right direction. And here's the crucial point. Nobody else can choose this vision for you. The world will try. People will push you into molds that serve their purposes, not yours. Culture will bombard you with images of success that may have nothing to do with what actually gives your life meaning. If you don't choose deliberately, you'll end up chasing someone else's vision, and that is a tragedy, because you'll succeed at becoming someone you never wanted to be. So take the responsibility to define it for yourself. Choose a vision that is worthy of your potential, one that stretches you, one that calls you to become more than you are now. Let it be difficult, because difficulty is what gives life weight and purpose. And once you see it clearly, hold on to it, write it down, speak it aloud, return to it when you're tempted to fall back into old patterns. Let it burn in your mind until it becomes more real than the excuses that try to hold you back. Because in the end, the greatest tragedy is not that people aim too high and miss, it's that they aim too low and hit. Choose a vision for yourself that is so meaningful it pulls you forward, even through fear, even through failure. Choose a vision that makes you into someone you'd be proud to meet, and once you've chosen it, never again settle for living as anything less. A vision on its own, no matter how powerful, is not enough. You can imagine the strongest, wisest, most disciplined version of yourself every day, but if your actions don't begin to reflect that vision, then it remains nothing more than a dream. Transformation is not about what you say you want. It's about what you do repeatedly in the quiet, ordinary moments of your life. Your choices are the building blocks of your identity. Every small decision either strengthens the old self or nourishes the new one. Think about how easy it is to betray your own vision. You tell yourself you want to be disciplined, but you hit the snooze button again and again. You say you want to live with honesty, but you let yourself slide with a convenient lie. You imagine a confident self, but you keep avoiding the difficult conversation that would demand courage. These small betrayals accumulate, and soon you're living in tension. You have a picture of who you want to be, but your life is governed by habits that contradict it. That tension is painful, but it's also a gift because it reveals exactly where your work must begin. The alignment between vision and action doesn't happen all at once. It's not a dramatic overnight shift. It's built slowly in the ordinary routines of your day. If your vision is to be someone strong and healthy, then the act of getting up and exercising when you don't feel like it is not just about fitness. It's an act of identity. If your vision is to be courageous, then speaking the truth in a moment of fear is not just about words. It's training your soul to become braver. If your vision is to live with integrity, then keeping a promise, even when it costs you, is not just a moral duty. It's a rehearsal for the person you're becoming. Each action is a vote for the new self, and those votes add up. You don't need to get it right every time. You will fail, you will stumble, you will act in ways that don't match your vision, but failure is not the end. What matters is what you do next. Do you use that failure as evidence that you'll never change, or do you treat it as feedback, a signal that you must get back up and realign? The difference between people who transform and those who remain stuck isn't perfection, it's persistence. It's the relentless decision to keep aligning again and again until the new actions become second nature. There's something extraordinary that happens when you live this way. At first, acting like the new self feels unnatural. You feel like an imposter, like you're pretending. But over time, with repetition, those actions carve grooves into your character. What once felt forced becomes natural. The person you envisioned slowly becomes the person you are. That's the hidden power of alignment. It doesn't just change your behavior, it rewires your identity. And this is why transformation is both beautiful and terrifying, because it means you are not defined by who you've been. You are defined by who you're willing to become, and your willingness is measured in action. No one else can do this for you. No one else can force you to make the choices that align with your vision. It's you, moment by moment, standing at a crossroads, deciding which version of yourself you will feed. The path is simple, though not easy. See the vision, act in accordance with it, fail, correct, and act again. Over and over until your life reflects the image you've chosen, and when you do, something remarkable happens. The gap between who you are and who you want to be begins to close. You no longer live in conflict. You live in truth, and that truth is the foundation of a life that is not only transformed, but unshakably real. If you've begun to align your actions with the vision of who you want to be, you will very quickly discover something unavoidable. The process is not easy. In fact, it's often painful. The old habits resist. The old fears push back. The comfortable patterns you've lived in for years won't surrender without a fight, and this is where most people turn back. They see the struggle as evidence that they're failing, when in reality it's evidence that they're growing. Struggle is not the enemy of transformation. It's the proof that transformation is underway. Think about what growth really means. To grow is to expand beyond what you were yesterday, and that expansion will always feel uncomfortable. A muscle doesn't grow without strain. A skill doesn't develop without repetition and mistakes. A person doesn't mature without hardship. Yet we've been conditioned to see struggle as a sign we're on the wrong path, as if life should be smooth if we're doing it right. That is a lie. The truth is that the presence of difficulty is not a sign you're failing. It's a sign you're stretching into a new version of yourself. And there's something deeply dignified about that struggle. When you choose to bear the weight of responsibility, when you face the resistance instead of running from it, you discover strength you didn't know you had. The person who avoids all struggle remains small, fragile, dependent. The person who embraces struggle becomes resilient, capable, someone others can rely on. And it's not because they were born stronger, it's because they were willing to endure. This doesn't mean you should love the pain itself. It's not about glorifying suffering for its own sake. It's about seeing what the suffering signifies. Every time you resist the urge to quit, every time you endure the discomfort of pushing past your limits, you're literally building the character that your vision requires. Struggle refines you. It strips away weakness, excuses, illusions, and leaves behind something leaner, tougher, truer. But here's the paradox. Embracing struggle doesn't just make you stronger, it also makes life more meaningful. Because meaning is found in the pursuit of something difficult yet worthwhile. Think of the moments in your life that you're most proud of. Were they easy? Of course not. They were born from sacrifice, effort, persistence. You remember them precisely because they demanded something from you. Struggle gives depth to achievement. Without it, even success feels hollow. This is why it's so dangerous to pursue comfort above all else. Comfort feels good in the moment, but it leaves you empty in the long run. A life built only on ease slowly robs you of vitality, but a life that embraces struggle in pursuit of a higher vision fills you with a quiet strength, a sense of dignity that cannot be faked, because deep down you know you've earned it. The truth is, you cannot transform without struggle, because struggle is the very process of transformation. It's the tension between the old self and the new self. It's the resistance you must overcome to grow into the person you've chosen to be. To reject the struggle is to reject the possibility of becoming more. To embrace it is to open the door to a life richer, stronger, more deeply rooted in truth. So when the path feels heavy, when the doubts creep in, when everything inside you wants to retreat back into comfort, remember this: the struggle is not a sign you're losing, it is the sign you're becoming. It is the fire that forges you into someone who can bear more, give more, and live more. And if you are willing to endure it, to carry it willingly, you will emerge not only transformed but unshakably alive. The most dangerous mistake people make after glimpsing their potential, after choosing a vision, after beginning the hard work of aligning their actions, is believing that transformation is something waiting for them in the future. They say, one day I'll become that person, one day I'll finally live that life. But that's a trap, because the only place transformation ever happens is in the present moment, in the choices you make today. If you keep postponing, you end up living your entire life as someone who was always about to change, and the years slip away. Living as the transformed self is not about waiting until you feel ready. It's about acting now as though you already are the person you've chosen to become. That doesn't mean you're perfect, or that you pretend you have it all figured out. It means you take ownership of your life by embodying the values, the discipline, the courage of your new self every single day, even when it feels unnatural, even when no one else notices, especially then. Consider how identity is actually built. It's not shaped in grand moments of revelation, but in the repetition of small, consistent acts. The confident person isn't someone who suddenly wakes up with confidence. They become confident because, day after day, they choose to face what scares them. The disciplined person isn't magically wired for self-control. They choose, moment after moment, to do what's necessary even when it's uncomfortable. The transformed self is not a sudden miracle. It's the cumulative weight of daily choices aligned with who you've decided to be. And this is where honesty becomes crucial. You can't lie to yourself about who you are becoming. You can say all the affirmations you want, but if your actions contradict your words, your mind knows the truth. The only way to make the new self real is to live it. That means when the alarm rings in the morning, you rise as the person you've chosen to be. When temptation comes, you respond as that person. When conflict arises, you act from that identity, not the old one. Every situation is a test, and every test is an opportunity to prove to yourself more than anyone else that you are living as the transformed self. There will be moments you fail, times when you fall back into old habits, when fear overwhelms you, when you slip into excuses. That's inevitable, but what matters is what you do next. Do you collapse into the story of the old self, or do you rise again and recommit to the vision? The transformed self is not defined by never falling. It's defined by rising every time, by refusing to surrender the ground you've gained. What's remarkable is how this daily practice compounds. At first, it feels like effort, like you're pretending, like the new self is a mask you're wearing. But over time, the mask becomes your face. The effort becomes natural. The gap between who you want to be and who you are begins to close. Others notice the change, but more importantly, you notice it. You no longer feel like two different people. The dream of your vision and the reality of your life merge into one. That's why living as the transformed self daily is so essential. It removes the illusion of someday and replaces it with the reality of now. It forces you to stop waiting for the perfect moment and instead create the perfect moment through your actions. Transformation is not a future event, it is a present discipline, and if you are willing to live this way, to embody the new self in every choice, every word, every act, then eventually there will be no question of who you are. You will not merely dream of transformation, you will have become it, and that is the point at which your life ceases to be a possibility and becomes a reality, not just for you, but for everyone whose life is touched by your example. When you step back and look at the path we've walked together, the truth becomes clear. Transformation is not an abstract idea. It is a deliberate journey. It begins with awareness, the courage to face yourself honestly. It deepens when you challenge the false image that has held you captive for too long. It expands as you choose a vision that reflects the highest possibility of who you could become. It gains strength when your actions align with that vision, when you live with integrity in the small choices of each day. It becomes real when you embrace the inevitable struggle, not as a curse, but as the very process that forges you into someone greater. And ultimately, it takes root when you stop waiting for the future and start living here and now as the transformed self. This is not a path for the faint of heart. It demands honesty, responsibility, persistence. But it also offers something far greater than comfort. It offers meaning. It gives you the chance to rise above the limitations of your past and step into a life of purpose, strength, and dignity. So the question is not whether transformation is possible. It is. The question is whether you will choose it, whether you will summon the courage to see yourself differently, to bear the weight of who you could become, and to live each day as a testament to that possibility. Because if you do, your life will not remain the same. It will grow, it will deepen, and it will shine with the unmistakable light of someone who refused to settle for less than what they were capable of being. And there is no calling more noble, no life more worth living than that.